Welcome to the Bible Momming Podcast, where we are parenting by the book. I am your host, Paula Whidden. This podcast is for women who struggle with regular mom stuff, but also long to have their kids grow closer to Christ. It's a lifetime journey, and we're in it together. As a real mom, you just never know where I'll be podcasting from, but I'll always be available for you. Now let's get started. Hello, mamas. How are you doing today? I'm sitting here in my home office, just enjoying getting to talk with you today. I'm appreciating when the sun comes out and the changes of the season. I'll be honest, this is my allergy season, so there are things I like about it and things I don't like about it. But I just wanted to welcome you to the Bible Momming Podcast today. We've been getting some great ratings, a lot of 5-star ratings for the podcast, and I want to thank you so much. Please feel free to rate the podcast however you want. I would love to see as many ratings as possible. This is how we get noticed. This is how people become aware that we even exist. And the more ratings that are there, the more people go, I might check that out. Also, if you would like to be sure that you get this on a regular basis, click subscribe on whatever venue you use. It's usually a plus mark, a check mark, something like that, or it'll say subscribe. Just click that and you'll get the podcast whenever you want them. Today, we are talking about combating stress because let's face it, momming is stressful. We're responsible for other human beings. And there's no book or guidelines for how we're supposed to deal with our particular persons. And nobody is going to be an expert on them except you. You get to balance schedules. You get to balance between work and home and spending time with your spouse, with your kids, dealing with the school. You have to balance all the expectations other people place on you as well as the expectations you put on yourself, which is usually a lot worse than what other people put on you. And then, of course, there are our own dreams. There are things that we wish we could do that are always kind of hovering there in the background as we're trying to figure out how we take care of everybody else. And we're trying to figure out the balance or the right timing on it all. And when we get stressed out, we express it in a variety of ways. We end up speaking louder. Sometimes we yell. I have a degree in voice, so that can be kind of echoey in our house. That's not good. We can be more irritable. We get impatient. And in the midst of all that, there can be lapses in judgment. It affects our sleep. It affects our attitudes about all sorts of things beyond what we feel stressful about. So there are ways that you can address it. There are ways that you can deal with this stress, and I'm here to try to help. Some of these are things that I've known people who have done, and it's been very helpful for them. Some of these things are things I myself have done, and some of these are recommendations that I know are helpful for other people. But I've got a pile of stuff here for you, so I want to help you deal with the stress of momming. One of the things that I love and I have occasionally done for myself is give yourself a timeout. I don't know if you've ever felt that welling up of emotion on the moment because your kid did something. And sometimes it's not really about what your child did. Sometimes it's about what that means to you in your history. Sometimes that's about what somebody else did in the past. And you find yourself feeling that frustration and anger and anxiety about that thing when your child does it. So, in order to help yourself have perspective, give yourself a timeout. Go to your own room and say, I'm putting myself in my room. I'll be out in 5 minutes. Or, you can say, Mommy needs to take a timeout. Mommy needs to take a walk around the block. Mommy needs to, whatever it is you need to do to calm your heart. There are some great research things on this. There's a guy named Daniel Pink who wrote a book called When, and one of the big things that he discovers in his book as he's trying to discover that there are certain good times to do different things is the value of taking breaks. And that might be that you take a break because you're stressed out and you're afraid you're going to say the wrong thing, but sometimes we need to give ourselves a timeout just because it's good to have a timeout. And that means you sit down and you are quiet for a little bit. That means you go sit in your backyard. That means maybe you purposely plan on coming to pick up your child 10 minutes early for school. And in that 10 minutes, you're sitting in the line ready to go pick them up. And that is your time. whatever it means, you need to have that quiet space. But Daniel Pink's research about breaks is huge, and how we can feel that tension of the day. And a lot of us want to push through. We want to keep going. But just taking 5 or 10 minutes is huge. And this is something that we don't realize because it doesn't make sense. And yet the research on it has been proven over and over again. One of the things that can be helpful for you to find out is, what is your most common stress time? Sometimes we develop this sort of pattern in our lives and we get really stressed out. Mondays can be a very stressful day because if you're going to work as well as trying to get your kids to school, then you're feeling the tension of, I've got to get me going, plus the tension of, come on, I need you to get going because I've got to get me going, and you not going affects me not going. And you see how this becomes a pattern. This is something for you to figure out. What are your most stressful times? What happens is we get into this kind of dance where we get a trigger, something that ignites the frustration in us, and then we act a certain way as a response to it. And then other people around us respond in a specific way. And it's almost like this repetition, like, oh, we've done this before. We've been down this dance before. So, for example, if your child things get really stressful in the morning because your kid can't decide what to wear on a regular basis. If you recognize that this is a common stress pattern, rather than repeating that pattern and going, this is going to somehow get better all on its own, which never, ever happens, you need to come up with a new plan. Maybe it's time to lay out clothes the night before, and that is what they will wear. They can help pick them, or you can pick them, but that is what they will wear. And you just need to keep that as a pattern to be successful, and figure out and learn from your family, learn from your own self what works. Another huge thing that can help us, and this can be part of your taking time out. You could do this if you have an extra job or whatever. You can do this as you're going to work. Come to work a little bit early, and you sit in the parking lot and you practice deep breathing and just being quiet, and even having a little brief time of prayer. This can set you up to be ready for the day. King David did this all the time, and specifically when he was a shepherd before he was king. He even made his prayers into songs. And in Psalm 94:19, it says, "When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me joy." He also wrote in Psalm 118:5 and 6, it says, "When hard pressed, I cried to the Lord. He brought me into a spacious place. The Lord is with me. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me?" I just want to encourage you. It is huge if you just kind of take a moment. It doesn't have to be really long. And one of the really funny tricks, and this is for me very true, if you could look at something that's green and natural, like a plant, a tree, whatever, somehow that is also just a little bit more calming. Or you close your eyes and you set a timer, and 5 minutes is it, right? One of the things I've been learning, and this is something that I find fascinating, a lot of people talk about naps, and when I'm rooting for my kid to have a nap, this is not the kind of nap I'm rooting for, so please understand. But one of the things I'm learning is that naps are hugely important, and a nap doesn't have to be as long as a lot of people think it has to be. The best length for a nap tends to be between 15 and 25 minutes. Now, for me, that doesn't mean I'm getting fully asleep. It's just quieting your mind and quieting your body. And your body will respond to that, and then you're able to handle the rest of the day better. So this can be a huge, huge help as you are trying to figure out how to deal with stress. Now, many of us know this, and we have it kind of in the back of our minds, but I just want to encourage you. Another way to deal with stress is exercise. It's a huge stress reliever. It releases endorphins into our bodies, which are just, that natural kind of a high thing that makes you go, woohoo. If you have to take the kids with you, you go for a walk or go to the park, go for a bike ride, even turn on Pandora in the middle of your house and just make it a dancing moment and have everybody dance. It is a stress reliever, and it's silly, and it can be fun. And one of the pluses of being a mom is you don't have to be cool for your kids. You don't have to try to be, the best of the best or whatever, because they are going to like you and love you and appreciate you as their mom regardless. So do the dorky dance. It's totally okay. Now, another thing that I've learned about stress, and this is a funny one. This is one I never knew would happen, but I came across this last year when my daughter was in track. She was part of this track team that's part of our town, and a friend of ours was coaching them. He's actually a former Olympic athlete. He was a swimmer. And he was talking about how to deal with the stress of the races, because a lot of kids just freak themselves out about the races. And he was giving them some tips on how to deal with that stress. He was talking about the stress of the races and giving them tips about how to deal with the stress of the race. And this is what he said. He said, try the laughing trick. And the idea was 1 minute of laughing. It doesn't have to be because you found something funny. You just consciously choose to laugh. And laughter itself also releases endorphins into our body. And even if it wasn't genuinely funny, just the act of choosing to laugh for a minute gets your body relaxed. And it's really funny. I still remember my daughter going for her first track meet, and we decided to do this. And here I'm like, I will help you. I will support you. And I'm watching the timer in my, the clock in my car, and I'm totally, fake laughing, right? And being absolutely absurd. And after the minute's up, then we start genuinely laughing just for a little bit, because it was funny to think about how we were trying to make ourselves laugh. And it did lighten her load, and it did make her less stressed. So much so that one time recently, she was getting ready for a test. I was taking her to school, and she was really nervous about this test. And she goes, Mom, can we do the laughing thing? So you don't realize it. And the American Psychological Association reported that stressed out people often hold a lot of stress in their faces. And so laughs, smiles, and giggles help relieve that tension as well. So I realize that that's odd, but yeah, that's a real thing. Also, as we're dealing with stress, be aware of your diet. Things we consume can build up our stress hormones. Alcohol, nicotine, sugars, caffeine, all those things build up hormones in our body that cause stress. So if you find, be logical about it. If you've been drinking very much wine, or, you've got issues with nicotine, I'm a massive sugar addict. I've actually had to quit sugar. How long has it been now? I've not been eating refined sugar for approximately, I want to say 12 years now. And this has been very helpful for me. Caffeine is another one. Just encourage you to drink more water, herbal teas, figuring out alternatives. I've spent a long time learning about how to cook without refined sugars, because that just means a lot to me, because I have a massive addiction to sugars. So be aware of your diet. It does affect your stress level. And mamas, get support. There are mom groups. Look around your town. There are mom groups in your area, maybe with your church or maybe with another local church. Even if it's not your church, if they've got a mom group and you really need to just talk with other moms, it's okay. Set up a meeting with a pastor and share the problem. Set up, if it's something that's got deeper issues, go back into your past that you think maybe there's something I need to solve from the past. That's the time to bring a therapist in. But just want to encourage you. If you're stuck, sometimes you need to bring other people into the story. And then I just want to encourage you, get more sleep. I did a whole episode on this. Episode 15 was about sleep matters. And I just want to encourage you, the less sleep we have, the more it affects so many parts of us. Matthew 11:28-30 says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." God wants to help you with this stuff. He's not looking to make your life harder. He's not looking to make things more difficult for you. He wants to help. Now, for some of us, these things that I've mentioned are big, but one of them, a big one that comes up a lot with women I talk to, is boundaries. Some of us just don't know when to say no. Some of us want to keep everybody happy, want to keep all the plates up in the air. We want to make sure the kids are doing really good, our husband's doing really good. We don't, all those things we've already talked about, those don't matter. We don't really do that. We just kind of keep going because we have this kind of idea that, yeah, I can take it, I can handle it. But we need some healthy boundaries. And it's okay to say no occasionally. If you aren't familiar, there's a book called Boundaries by Drs. Cloud and Townsend, and it's phenomenal. Just kind of giving some insight into recognizing the things we do and do not control, and being okay with letting go of our imagined sense of control on some of those things so that we're not building up stress in ourselves. And I've listened to it on audiobook. It's phenomenal. So just, you can check that out. It's a really, really great book. And finally, if we seek out ways to be thankful and appreciate what we've got rather than what we don't have, this alone is a major combater of stress. I did a whole episode on this, episode 11, The Secrets to Thankful Kids, and I just want to encourage you. When Philippians 4, 6, and 7 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." When it says that, God means that as we pray for our issues, as we're asking Him for help, and as we're thankful for all the many ways He has already helped, He gives us a sense of peace that takes over where the stress was. It doesn't make sense, but it will guard your heart and your mind. And if you are dealing with stress in your life, Mama, I just really want you to know you are valuable, you are beautiful, you are an amazing creation of God. And there are things you can do to deal with that stress. You don't have to be stuck inside it. If you want to talk with me about this, I would love to hear from you. You can contact me, Paula@BibleMomming.com. You can get to be part of our Bible Momming group on Facebook. If you're a Facebook fan, I'd love to have you join us. Just say that you want to join, and I will get you into that group, or my assistant will. And we just really want to see you have community and be willing to let go of those things that you've been holding on to that just make life much, much, much less of a blessing. I've enjoyed this time we have together. I know you have plenty of things to do and many options, so thank you for listening. Remember, love is patient, love is kind, and that is never more real than in our families. God bless you, and have a great week.